Hello, my name's Olivia. I'm 40 years old and I have a wild and crazy story to tell. This is all to do with my scumbag of an ex. Even though we're still legally married, I consider him my ex-husband because of what he did to me and our daughter 4 years ago. 4 years ago, when Kimberly was just 14, we were struggling to put food on the table due to my husband aimlessly squandering all our money. It was something that brought a lot of tension in the house, as we, as a family, couldn't survive on just one salary alone. It was a point of contention between us, but he would never disclose where or what he'd spend the money on. Even though Kimberly was young, she understood that things weren't right in the household, and she even began to resent her father for the amounts that he would spend. As much as I tried to protect her innocence and keep this awful news from her, she realized at some point, with the way that Ben was acting and treating both me and her, that he was the one in the wrong. Her suspicions were confirmed when one day, on a cold and rainy afternoon on June 16th, he left. He would normally leave us alone, sometimes for months on end, but this time it was permanent. We knew that he wouldn't come back for sure once a full year had passed ever since he left. And at that moment, Kimberly and I despised that man. "I hate him, Mom." "I know, sweetie, I too hate him for what he's done to us and for what he's done to you. You don't deserve the way that he's treated you, and even though he needs to atone for his sins, I'm going to pick up where he's slacked off. I promise you I'm going to work so hard that you won't ever need anything." And that I did. I quit my job and began to pursue affiliate marketing as well as content writing. It took about a year to make a living that I could say I was proud of, as I managed to become a homeowner as well as buy a beautiful and luxurious car for both myself and Kimberly. We were doing very well, if I do say so myself, and I'm glad that my work ethic rubbed off on Kim because she too began to pursue a career in online content creation. She managed to amass a total following of 90,000 followers on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. My baby girl was becoming a rising star. And in this day and age, turning your lifestyle into your income is a sweet deal. I am so proud of her. Unfortunately, though, as with most things in our lives, what goes up must eventually come down. And we sadly lost Henry, who was my ex-father-in-law, as well as Kimberly's grandpa. We were all devastated. Even though Ben left us all those years ago, we still kept in touch with his parents, after all. They were good people. They even helped us out during the tough financial times as well as the emotionally challenging times. They too were angry and hurt at Ben's actions, but Henry, his father, was particularly devastated. While the rest of us gave up and lost hope in Ben, Henry was still holding on to some faith that Ben would one day return with an explanation that would change our minds about what he did to us. As ridiculous as that sounds, he was such a loving person that his big heart simply couldn't accept anything other than that. Sadly, though, Henry would never get to see if his hope would ever be fruitful, as he, unfortunately, passed away. He had lived a long and fulfilling life, but I'm sure never hearing from his son is what also aided in his demise. Kimberly and I obviously attended the funeral, and once we saw Aria, Kimberly's grandma, and my ex-mother-in-law, we all ran towards each other and just held each other as tightly as we could. It was such a sad event to behold, but something completely outrageous happened that was just too shocking to comprehend. I'm sure the ambience of the cemetery, paired with paled and harrowed faces, was playing mind tricks on me because I could have sworn that I'd just seen a ghost. My eyes must have been playing a trick on me because somewhere in the distance I saw a ghost. I saw the ghost of a man who had been dead to me for 4 years. I saw my husband. Fortunately, or unfortunately, till this day I can't decide. Enough. It wasn't actually an apparition. It was indeed my husband, but he did look like a ghost. He was unnaturally slim, and it looked like all the blood in his body was siphoned. I attributed it to the fact that he appeared to know that his father was dead, and such harrowing news would make anybody look and feel ill. He approached the funeral, and everybody was, unsurprisingly, shocked. Kimberly began to scream and shout at her father, berating him for leaving all those years ago. Aria, his mother, began to sob even harder, wondering where everything went wrong. But I, on the other hand, was frozen still. I couldn't move. I was just so overwhelmed with a flood of emotions. Look, it's clear that your presence isn't wanted here. You don't get to just randomly show up anyhow. I think it's best that you leave, the same way that you left so easily 4 years ago. I hate you, and I don't want to see you here. Oh my goodness, Ben. How could you have left all those years ago? Your father died of a broken heart, you know. Let him stay. Everyone looked shocked, including Ben. Honestly, I even surprised myself after being stunned for what felt like years. I realized at that moment that this was not the time nor the place to have such a dramatic display of pent-up emotions. Even though I hated his guts and wasn't expecting to see his face here, he did lose his father, and he had the right to see him one last time. I expressed this sentiment to the parties involved, and everyone agreed, for the time being at least, to remain civil and cordial, out of respect for dear Henry, who was no longer with us. The funeral went on, and we all reconvened at my home. Ben also came and said, "Nice place you got here." "Cut the crap, Ben. You don't just waltz in here like nothing happened. If you want to stay here any longer, you have to tell us everything, absolutely everything, because I will not have you taint this beautiful home with your negative energy. Olivia has worked way too hard for this home. You owe us an explanation, and you can start with why you look like a zombie. Actually, scratch that. You can start by stating your business. What exactly do you want? Because we all know that you're not here because of Grandpa's funeral." "Of course I'm here because of my father's funeral. He was my father, but I'm also here for another thing. I'm here to collect my inheritance." I had to physically hold Kim back before she attempted to launch another vicious attack. Some heads were being turned, and I could hear people murmuring about the brewing altercation that was about to ensue. Luckily, Aria had a hold of the crowd while I escorted Ben and Kim to a more secluded section of the house. "I didn't mean to hurt you, my baby." "Don't call me that. I'm not your anything. You forfeited the right to call me that the moment you decided to leave us to fend for ourselves with no explanation or anything. I mean, what sort of father does that? I try to forgive you, but I simply can't." "Look, Kim, Olivia, I'm sorry about everything. I really am, but I desperately need the money. I'm in some hot water right now, and You think we care about you and your problems? By the looks of it, you seem to have gotten yourself in the wrong crowd. Are you doing drugs?" Ben hesitated, and at that moment it made sense as to why he was so pale and sickly looking. "Ben?" At that moment, Aria joined us. "Now that I've sorted everything out, Ben, can you please explain what happened? You know, your father waited for you all this time. He was the one who held on to the hope that you would return one day, with a good enough explanation that would solve all of our doubts. So please tell me that you come bearing some good news. Tell me something to believe in you again." I came here to get my inheritance money, Mom." "He's on drugs, Grandma. That's why he came here, to get his inheritance money so that he can buy more drugs." "No, it's not like that at all. Look, you were right about me hanging with the wrong crowd. Let's just say that I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and well, now I owe some people some money." "How much are we talking about?" 50. 50,000? Ben, what did you do?" Wow, that is great. So you mean to tell me while Mom and I were struggling to keep warm and feed ourselves, you were messing around with shady people? Ha! Well, we won't help you with that. You made your bed, and now you have to lay in it. Sweetie, I know you're upset, but please let's just... Are you trying to defend him right now? He left us, Mom. I know, Kimberly. He didn't just leave you, okay? He left me too. He left your grandmother as well, and he left Grandpa too. He broke all of our hearts. And we don't ever have to forgive him for doing that, but clearly he's learned his lesson, right? I mean, just look at him. It's so crazy how I was defending him so wholeheartedly back then, when in the end, it was because of me that he eventually did what he did. Shortly after the funeral was finalized, Ben was putting up in a motel, and Aria and I, mostly Aria, would visit him to see if he needed anything. Kim refused the idea of even seeing his face again. We just wanted to finalize his inheritance so that he could be on his merry way. Kim and I decided that we didn't want much to do with him, but Aria, seeing as she was his mother, obviously wanted to try and rekindle something. As the weeks went by and the family lawyers did their best to authenticate Henry's will and see about inheritance values, Aria brought Ben to the house so that she could at the very least promote a civil environment amongst us all. As much as the bitterness and hatred weren't going to do us any good, it was going to take a long time for us to be anywhere near that. Kim would sometimes come just to sit and not speak, but she mostly opted out of the whole thing. Finally, the lawyers informed us of the inheritances that each person would receive, and by some lucky stroke of fate, it turned out that the inheritance money that Ben would receive was going to amount to $50,000. Kim was infuriated. She didn't find it fair that the person who robbed her of her happiness for many, many years gets to be rewarded out of the blue. As much as she was an adult, she was still my baby, and I could understand her frustrations. But unfortunately, it wasn't up to her to decide whether he would get the money or not. Aria and I were seemingly nonchalant about the findings, and honestly, I just wanted this whole process to be done with so that I could go back to living my good life. As Ben was assimilating to this lifestyle, it appeared as though his demeanor changed. He went from shy, timid, and remorseful to slightly arrogant and cocky, especially when he heard that he would be receiving exactly what he came here for. I noted this behavior change, but opted not to say anything and just chalk it up to the drugs he was doing. It was so sad to see a man who used to be so respectable end up like this. I just couldn't understand. A few more weeks went by and Aria told me, Ben's inheritance money is ready to be collected. He doesn't know about it yet, but I wanted to inform you beforehand. I know it's a terrible thing to give such a large amount of money to an addict. As he can do, God, I don't even want to think about what he'd want to do. I'm so sorry, my child, but I just don't think that I can handle giving him the money just to see him disappear again. It would just shatter that sliver of hope that I have left for him. I can't be the one to give it to him. Please, can you do it? Of course, Aria. I can't imagine how hard this has been on you. It takes a different type of strength as a mother to witness such an awful thing happen to your baby. You've been strong for too long, Ma. It's time for you to rest. Please don't worry. I'll handle everything. Although I took on the task of handing Ben the money, I too needed some time to regulate myself and be at peace with any outcome that was about to happen. To calm myself down, ironically enough, I hid away in the attic where all of the old paraphernalia of my old life would sit. I kept a lot of the things from the old house. As I managed to make peace with my situation, I discovered that these old things that used to be filled with pain also remind me of just how far I'd come. It seemed like the perfect spot for me to just sit and reflect upon the old and dusty plastic tea set that we managed to bargain for at a cheap yard sale when we couldn't afford proper dishes and cutlery. I reminisced on the half-dead heater that had a mind of its own and decided when it wanted to work. Oftentimes it would choose not to, and Kim and I would have to huddle together for warmth, but it was never enough. I looked at Ben's old chest, full of what I presumed to be old work documents. I never dared to open it though, as I was scared of just how much money was being taken from the household to fund his other seemingly more important lifestyle. For whatever reason though, on this day, the day I was supposed to give him the money, I decided that I couldn't be afraid anymore. I had to see what was inside. I broke open the now worn-out chest to find papers and papers of bank statements and checkbooks, all detailing the amount of money that Ben had wasted away. With the bank statements detailing where the money was going, I noted that the account recipient was named Maria. I didn't know of a Maria, but as I began to dig deeper, I found out who exactly this Maria was, and it made my heart drop. Deep within the chest was a letter, a handwritten letter. It read, "Dear Ben, when are we going to stop sneaking around like this? I'm getting bored and tired of your inability to kick your wife and kid to the curb like you said you would. You seem to enjoy spending months with me, taking all of my drugs, and going back to your family, even though you clearly hate them. If you don't tell them the truth, I will get Manuel involved. You already owe him tons of money from all the drugs you do with him for free. And this is how you want to treat me? I'm giving you 24 hours to get this done. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. Maybe I'll tell your wife all about me and our affair, as well as all the expensive bags and shoes you buy me. Or maybe I'll tell Manuel to get his goons to sort you out. Maybe I'll do both. Who knows? All of this can be avoided if you just do what we agreed upon. Remember, 24 hours or your entire life is going to come crashing down. Tick, tick, babe. Ciao, Maria." Reading this letter almost made my heart explode in my chest. I even had to sit down. So Ben was having an affair before he left, and he had spent the money on his mistress. The thought made me want to vomit. This man had prioritized his party animal lifestyle while his wife and kid were at home starving. Completely unforgivable and completely disgusting. This is what you were waiting for. The explanation for all of his horrendous behavior simply boils down to selfish self-indulgence. The rage and bitterness that I had for so long began to boil within me at this point. I was moving on autopilot. I got up, gathered everything from the chest, and stormed to the dingy motel that Ben was living in. I burst through the door to find Ben with some drugs on the bed. "You are completely unbelievable. You're doing drugs just as I was about to give you the money?" "What? You have the money? That's great. Give it to me." "You are pathetic and you make me sick." "Yeah, well, I don't care. Give me the money, Olivia." "What is this?" I flung the papers to him, holding on to the letter I had the pleasure of discovering just moments ago. Whilst he was sifting through the bank statements he conveniently hid from me, I began to read the letter out loud. He froze. If he didn't look sickly and pale before, he looked emaciated now. He looked like a scared little puppy by the time I was finished reading. "You got this letter on June 15th, right? The day before you just up and left." "I can explain." No, Ben, you can't explain. The time for explaining is over. You're 4 years too late. I was sick, Olivia. I still am sick, as you can see. Stop with the excuses, Ben. You think I wasn't tired? You think I didn't want relief anywhere I could find it? We all make choices, Ben. You're a grown man, damn it. You left us because you were having an affair. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I never loved you. I never wanted that life. I never wanted to be with you. I just got with you and had the kid so that Mom and Dad could get off my back. I never wanted responsibility, and frankly, I don't care enough to rekindle or mend anything between us. Not you, not Kimberly, and not even my mother. I know it sounds awful to say, but it's the truth. Take it or leave it. Now give me my money. I can't say I'm surprised, actually. You've always been the evil villain to me. And that's all you ever were. Even now, as I look at you, you look like some demon from a comic book. You're disgusting. Olivia, I really don't care what you think about me. Just give me my money. You might not care what I think. You might not even care about what your mother and daughter think as well. But it appears as though a certain Maria and Manuel have a hold on you, even if it's just a little bit. He froze once more. Bingo. I take it that you managed to escape them, right? Now you're running with a new crew, and because you're a pathetic mess, you managed to mess up those relations also. He briefly nodded. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this place immediately without the money. You won't get a single dime of this inheritance money. Consider this money reparations for Kimberly and I. You owe us that much at least. What? Are you crazy? Tom's going to kill me if I come back without his money. That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before engaging with this stuff. And what if I refuse? Well then, I believe that someone with a very large following on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube might just accidentally leak some very private information about you. You know, the type of information that can reach anybody, including people named Manuel and Maria. Additionally, somebody else with a very successful blog and website can write an article, further exposing you to absolutely anybody with an internet connection. All right, I hear you loud and clear. Yeah, I'm giving you 24 hours to get all of your things and get out of here. Get out of this city. Hell, get out of this state. Your presence isn't welcome here. You don't need to say goodbye to anybody. I'm going to tell Aria and Kimberly everything, as if their hearts haven't been broken enough. What a shame indeed. I don't even know what to say. How about ciao, good luck. Let's hope your drug buddies don't rough you up too badly. Although, now that I think about it, I don't care what they do to you. You've already been dead to me for 4 years now. He left town the next, and thankfully none of us has seen him since. I am just very content in the fact that all 3 of us have some closure on where Ben had gone and why.